Hello and welcome into the KE Report. Shad and Corey here, getting an update from West Red Lake Gold Mines. Traded on the TSX.V under the ticker WRLG, and on the OTCQB under the ticker WRLGF. And we're joined today with the VP of Exploration, Will Robinson. And Will, it's great to get you back on the show to get an update. You had some good news out just on Tuesday that you intersected 13.4 grams per ton gold over 10 meters and 12.21 grams per ton gold over 3 meters at the North Austin zone at the Madsen mine. And we've been talking about this project in the Red Lake Gold District and the restart plan and the development plan of this mine. And we've spent a lot of time on the South Austin zone in the last couple of interviews. So it's nice to shift back up to the North Austin zone. And I guess just give us an update on how this drilling ties into the overall strategy for both the North and the South Austin zones as they'll be feeding into the development plan.
Yeah, definitely. Great to be back. Thanks for having us again. Yeah, so at North Austin, the drill has continued to turn in that area of the deposit. We were just waiting to have, a healthy amount of results sort of in hand before coming back out with another press release. And of course, that was ultimately highlighted by, as you said, that sort of headliner hole, 13.4 grams over 10 meters, which is pretty exceptional. So we're really happy with the consistency and the quality of the results that we're getting out of North Austin. So this is still an expansion area of the deposit and of the mine that we're focusing on. It's close to existing underground infrastructure, and so it's essentially a brownfields target. But what's important to point out about North Austin as opposed to some of the South Austin targets is how close to surface it is. So it's in the upper portions of the deposit, and being close to the underground infrastructure, we see that as something that we can hopefully define and then get plugged into the early phases of mining, when we do eventually get into to restart.
What sort of spacings are we talking about now that the company has drilled in this North Austin zone, simply in terms of now your knowledge around the resource size here?
For sure, yeah. With the first pass, if you will, and as we're sort of marching down plunge on some of these ore shoots in that area, the expansion drilling at Madsen Underground currently is around 12 to 15 meters. And so that essentially brings the resource category up into like the indicated range of level of confidence. And then, based on success of that, what's nice about North Austin is how close we are to it and how accessible it is. And so we can then transition immediately from the expansion phase into more of a definition style program there. Then when we tighten up the drilling to 6 to 10 meters, which would then be up into our, mineable inventory level of confidence, if you will.
Well, and Will, maybe just speak from a high level that you're going to start doing some test mining and that this area, along with South Austin, are some of the areas that may come into focus. How will that mine spacing and continuity play into that? And maybe just also speak to your internal studies, maybe differing than what the market's been able to see because they're for your development plans as far as a mining scenario.
Yeah, the test mining is going to be, it's really exciting, for our team. And I think it's going to be very educational, for the team at site and for the whole group. So basically what we're looking at doing is coming into a few high priority areas of the deposit, which we already have, flagged for the early sequence of the mining phase. And we're actually going to be dropping stopes. And so we're going to be, drilling these areas out. We're going to be testing our internal short range planning model, and then building stopes around that, and then actually dropping rock close to some of the remnant mining areas to see how that rock behaves, and then also learn more about how the historic stopes are actually left. Like, what was the type of backfill that was put into those areas, whether it be hydraulic fill or crushed rock fill. Another kind of interesting concept that we're looking at related to that is historically they never did gravity separation on the material that they were mining. And so we know there is a pretty significant coarse gold component at Madsen, even during the production phase for pure gold over the 18 months. They were still getting 40 to 50% of the gold recovered in the gravity circuit at the Madsen mill. So we know there's a significant portion of coarse gold in the material. And so if there's any grade that was potentially put back into some of these stopes as backfill, there could be an opportunity for us to take advantage of that when mining up against some of these areas, and increase the volume a little bit within some of those mineable zones. So that's just another, aspect of it. It'll be part of the learning process, and we'll be testing that theory, as we move forward with the test mining phase.
Well, can you give us a general idea of the size in terms of how many ounces of gold are in this North Austin, also in the South Austin zone?
Yeah, between the two expansion areas that we've been drilling, so there was within South Austin, we also put out some news flow for expansion drilling. And you can, to the listeners, when you look at our press releases, if the hole numbers have a D nomenclature coming after the MM24, those would be development holes. And if they have an X, those are the expansion or exploration holes. But between the two areas, we were hoping to get 40 to 50,000 ounces defined, and we're already at that mark, with our internal models. And so you can't, hang your hat on that until you do a proper, fulsome resource estimate. But we're very encouraged so far by the numbers that we're seeing. And so having two areas like that, readily accessible, close to underground infrastructure, more continuous areas that weren't actually historically mined nearby, gives us a very good advantage to actually have portions of those areas available. So we can, then focus on larger tonnage, potentially, lower cost, larger tonnage mining methods in those areas, and then supplement that with some of these more discrete areas that are adjacent to some of the remnant mining areas of the deposit.
Well, Will, we've spent so much time talking about the North Austin zone and the South Austin zone. I guess we should also mention that there's still the main Austin zone, and North Austin, I think it sits in the footwall of the main Austin zone. But is there any opportunity to do any trial mining in just the main zone, or has that been mostly mined out at this point?
No, there is. Yeah, there's a ton. So one of the drills was actually just in the 9 level in the main Austin zone, and that's one of the areas that we flagged for early mining actually. And so we were in there with the drill that was accomplishing both definition drilling, but also doing some probe hole and test drilling ahead of the test mining phase in that area. And so we have, areas within Austin, South Austin, and North Austin that we're going to be highlighting or prioritizing for the early sequencing of the mining phase. And to your point about, areas that have been mined out and things to that, it's kind of interesting too, just the history of the deposit. So if you look at, since, it was originally started mining in the 30s and 40s, right? And they got down 26 levels, which is down to about 1,300 meters. Our existing shaft goes down 1,275 meters down, gets us really close to 8 zone. But the two operators after that, which were Claude Resources and then Pure Gold, they actually only mined down to around 7 level. So Claude got, pretty much worked through things down to 7 level as best as they could. Pure Gold never really accessed any of the historic levels for mining. It was all new development. And we know most of their work was focused mainly on McVeigh. And then only during, the latter months of production, they were actually able to access the upper portions of South Austin, which is really when things started coming together for them and they started getting better reconciliation and had a little bit more predictable mining, under their belts at that point. So we're really excited about now having the opportunity with the development that we've had a chance and the time to advance. We're currently down just below 12 level in the mine. So we're now opening up areas of the deposit that, the last two previous operators never even had access to. And so that's really exciting for us. So we feel that there's more opportunity as we go deeper in the system. And so as we continue to dewater the mine and get access to these areas, we'll be drilling them out and definitely taking advantage of that upside.
Let's talk about this test mining then, more from the investor's standpoint, because investors sometimes look at test mining and they think, oh, the company's going to be cash flowing out of this. This is the path to increasing production, maybe even getting to commercial production. How should investors view that move to test mining and the news that you're going to be putting out on the back of that?
Yeah, so what the test mining will do, and as it relates to actual, production profile and cash flow and things like that, the way that we're looking to do the reconciliation with the test mining is actually bringing in a sampling tower. That's one option that we're evaluating. The other option, of course, would be to start the mill, right, and run the material through the mill. So we're still evaluating that. The sampling tower is one way that we would be able to bring that material to surface and get, an effective or accurate characterization of the grade within that material. Then that material would then effectively become a stockpile. And so, as we do the test mining, all the material that we're taking out, running through the sample tower, if that's the route that we go, that then, we have accurate grade characterization of that material, and then we can stockpile it effectively. All that then becomes buffer and cushion and sort of runway, for when we do eventually turn the mill on. So currently that's the way that we're viewing it. And then of course we've already come out and said, second half of next year is when we plan to be in that operating phase. And by that point, obviously the mill will be up and running.
Well, Will, another thing I think that would be good to highlight is just the internal communication and how one area of the team is communicating with the other area team, maybe a little differently than prior operators. And your team in particular, Will, has done a great job of helping the engineering side of things and the mine development side of things with the exploration results you're finding on a daily basis. So maybe just discuss that, just how your team is using communication to come up with a plan just a little differently than other operators.
Yeah, for sure. The culture has been incredible. From day one, we retained a lot of the talent that was on site and part of the Pure Gold process. And during that, and that was hugely educational for a lot of those folks. There were some things that could have been done that maybe should have been done that were top of mind to a lot of this team. Members of that team, including our chief geologist, Jill Crispin, was part of the reevaluation and the remodeling of the deposit, which was really starting to pay dividends towards the end of the Pure Gold era when their reconciliation was starting to come together. But no, I mean the level of communication and collaboration just between the departments at site, between engineering and mining and ops and geology with the drilling, and then how that comes up to the corporate level is up well, with the team in Vancouver, and how we just keep each other up to speed on things. We keep pushing each other, challenging each other to be better and to think about things that one group may have not have considered. It's been an excellent process to be involved with to date, and I think it's really keeping everybody motivated and keeping us all focused on the objective at hand, and definitely keeping the morale sky high as we move forward. So we're having a really good time as we advance this project.
So what other drilling is going on? What sort of news flow can we watch out for? Where are the drills turning now on this project?
Yeah, we've got the one drill continuing to turn away in North Austin. We'll be doing more drilling in Austin and South Austin as well. So, just the main parts of the deposit. We've actually do still have some opportunity up in the McVeigh zone, even though it's got a little bit of a nasty reputation from past history. There is still opportunity in McVeigh that exists. And, as far as understanding of the deposits, all the work that was done in there by Pure Gold, that's probably the part of the deposit we know the most about now in hindsight, right? So there's still some low-hanging fruit in McVeigh that we're going to take full advantage of, but mainly it's just going to be moving forward with the the definition, taking up about 70% of the meters, and then about 25 to 30% on the expansion side. So we're still mainly focused on the infill and increasing our confidence in areas of the deposit of Madsen, and that's all just going to feed into the restart, right? So that's going to be our main focus at Madsen. For Rowan, I guess we can touch on that a little bit. With our strategy around Rowan, we sort of reevaluated where the deposit currently sits, following the last MRE update. And we've got about 200,000 ounces in the ground, high confidence indicated category, close to 13 grams per ton on the grade. And really for what Rowan is envisioned as a satellite feed source, it's already accomplished sort of the size that it needs to be to fill that role. And so rather than, putting more money and drilling into Rowan to grow that, since it's further down, the timeline, probably year 3 or 4 of the mine life, we're actually going to reallocate some of those meters or all of those meters really back into the Madsen area. And so we're looking at some near mine targets that we're just kind of putting together now. We have some, that were top of mind, but we have some new targets that we've generated. We just wrapped up a first pass field program that was focused in the Confederation assemblage of rocks. We collected a bunch of till samples, did a lot of geologic mapping and rock sampling on outcrop to help us start building up some new targets. And so we're just evaluating all the assay information for that now. We've got all the till sample assays back from the lab, so we'll be evaluating those. But we're really excited to, to put some of that money back in the ground on the Madsen property on some of these high caliber targets closer to the mine, closer to the mill, that could probably pay back and pay dividends earlier than something like Rowan, which is a little bit further down the road. So we're really excited about that. And as we put that plan and strategy together, be happy to come back on and speak more to that. So.
Well, and Will, one that I've just got a couple questions on from folks. We've addressed this in the past, but I want to make sure we do again. The 8 zone, are you still planning on drilling that later this year?
Yeah, 8 zones on the docket. Is probably going to be something that we're going to be drilling in Q4. just because, we have 2 drills underground and, we're having so much success out of North Austin. We definitely want to keep advancing that area, being as it is so close to existing infrastructure. Will be a much more earlier, thing that we can plug into the production pipeline as opposed to 8 zone, which again is also still a little bit later. But we're very excited about the 8 zone and the grade and the upside that it presents. And so it's definitely still on the books for drilling, but that'll probably be a target that comes into play in Q4. And that just is mainly based around the scheduling, right? And when we can get a drill down onto the 12 level to drill 8 zone from underground, and how that feeds into the test mining that we're doing, for instance, now, and a lot of the infill and the definition that we want to achieve, before the end of the year, essentially. So yeah, 8 zone is definitely still on the books.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there for today, Will, but a lot of drilling on tap here at multiple levels in the Madsen mine. And so we'll keep tabs on it, keep us posted as more news comes out. We'll get you back on for an update. And if people listening in want to follow along with the news from West Red Lake Gold Mines, definitely click on the link below this interview. It takes you right over to the company website directly to the news section, so you can follow along as well. And Will, looking forward to our next conversation.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.